Compiled a list of all the things that I think are must-haves when it comes to breastfeeding or pumping. I have done both at this point. I started off with no supply, so I had to try to increase my supply. I was exclusively pumping because my son wouldn't latch, and then as of very recently, he decided to latch, so now I'm also like breastfeeding. These are all items that I think are necessary regardless of whether you're going to be exclusively pumping or combo feeding or whatever. And I identify as a minimalist. I definitely hate clutter and I hate excessive things, so I try to get just the necessities. Number one, most important thing in my opinion is a wearable pump. And I know that a lot of people are going to say that you can't increase your supply with a wearable pump. I couldn't have increased my supply without a wearable pump. I had a wall pump and it really wasn't working for me, and I'm just too busy to be like tethered to it all the time. As soon as I got a wearable pump, I was able to pump consistently and my supply increased immediately. Now with that being said, I do still think that you need a good like hospital grade wall pump. But if I was only gonna get one or the other, I would get the wearable. I liked the Mom Cozy S12 Pro, and then for the wall pump, I have the Spectra Synergy Gold. Also put all these in my Amazon storefront on the breastfeeding must-have list. The next most important thing is getting flange adapters. These are basically inserts that will adjust the flange to be the correct size for your nipple. They all typically come with a 24-inch flange, but most people's nipples are not that big, so you're gonna want something that adjusts it to the correct size for you. This is crucially important. I wasn't doing this at first, and again, my supply was like non-existent. I got the correct flange size, definitely helped me increase my supply, and then I decided one night to pump without the flange adapter in, and I ended up getting a clogged duct, and I'm convinced that it's because I was using the wrong size. The next most important thing I think is a Haka and a Ladybug. Haka itself is a manual pump that like suctions on, and you can put it on the opposite boob when you're feeding on one, but you can also use it as a manual pump if you're like on the go and desperate. Ladybug is just a milk collector, but you are going to leak on one side when you're feeding on the other, and so the Ladybug will work to collect that milk that's leaking out. I would also really recommend going ahead and having a nipple shield. For me, I didn't even know that this was something that existed. They gave me one at the hospital, but the one that they gave me there was terrible. It didn't really work. And then after meeting with a lactation consultant, she gave me a much better one. That one worked, and even when my son couldn't latch, his ties were still all going on in his mouth, he could latch to the nipple shield. To me, that is just something that it would make a lot of sense to have on hand, just in case that's something you run into. Also just convenient if they're having difficulty latching or whatever. If you're planning to also bottle feed and you want to still be able to breastfeed, the pigeon nipples are the ones that my lactation counselor recommended to me, and those are the ones that my son used the entire time that he was bottle feeding. And just now at 3 months, he was able to latch. So clearly that is a good bottle nipple if you still want the opportunity to breastfeed. He never did it for the entire first 3 months of his life. He drank pretty much exclusively from a bottle and just started latching, and those are the bottle nipples we've used the entire time. This last one I would probably hold off on buying until you see what kind of supply you're gonna have and know that you're gonna be consistent, because no one prepared me for how much work pumping and breastfeeding actually was. Like, I was so uninformed. But if you are consistent and you end up with some oversupply, you're gonna want freezer bags so you can store it. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that would be nice to have, but these are just the things that I think are like essential to your success.